Welcome to the Pat White Show. Let's get into it.
This is Sparta!
Hello, everyone, and welcome on in. Right now, we're going to chat about the Super Bowl. Not the final score. That's not a big thing. Doesn't mean anything to me. It's two teams just seeing who could be the better team that day. I want to talk to you about something that caught my attention, and maybe, just maybe, it caught your attention. It was the singing of the national anthem. Now, I'm one of those people that happens to think the national anthem is pretty doggone important. I spent 25 years serving my country, and I always got a chill up my spine when I heard the national anthem because it meant something to me. It's about my country and what I did to serve and what so many others also did to serve their country, many of whom never came back. National anthem it means a lot. And over the years, they've had a number of singers sing the national anthem. You can go to people like Garth Brooks, Faith Hill, Charlie Pride, Carrie Underwood, Eric Church, Mickey Guyton, Chris Stapleton. So Reba had some pretty big shoes to fill when she sang the national anthem at the Super Bowl. 68 years of age. And, there was the Black National Anthem. And I'm not even sure I know what that is. Sorry, that's just me. I don't know if there needs to be such thing because we're going to have the Korean national anthem, the Mexican national anthem, the Ukraine national anthem at our Super Bowls. I mean, this country is developing into a multi-nation country. Pretty soon everybody's going to have a national anthem singing in the Super Bowl. But anyway, lest I digress. Reba McEntire sang the national anthem, and man, did she bring it. She flat out brought the national. So, Matt, one of the players they got a tight shot of brought tears to his eyes. I think it's defensive tackle Chris Jones. Yeah, Chris Jones. Tears streaming down his face. And the national anthem performance was on Instagram. Not that I have Instagram because I don't care. But people on Instagram says, thank you, Reba, an amazing singer. She did a great job, they said. Reba ate this, whatever that means. Her voice is amazing. Reba should have been the halftime show. And that, by the way, it's something I'll think about. Halftime shows, well, I don't control them, I don't make them, and I don't watch them. At least until it's something that I want to watch. But that being said, let's talk about the national anthem. Reba sang it. Reba was great. And Reba made America, and those of us that care about the national anthem, made us sit up and go, yeah, about time somebody did a good job of singing the national anthem. Now, that's just my opinion. You may not agree. That's your call. But I'm telling you, from my standpoint, I was honored. Coming up next. Hello, everyone, and welcome in for another astute lecture on the world and the way I happen to see it right here on the Pat White Show. Now, recently, I went out on a limb, and I said that Joe Biden is not going to be the candidate for the presidency in 2024. The candidate would be none other than Michelle Obama. Now, I've taken some heat for that. She didn't want Barack to run for the Senate in Illinois. She didn't want him to run for president. But she doesn't mind the life she's living now, thankfully, the fact that he was. However, there are those saying that Barack wants to have his term number 3, term number 4, whatever, and Michelle's the way to get there. And Valerie Jarrett, who pretty much has a bedroom in the White House from the Obama administration, still is calling the shots in the White House, many say. Now, I realize Karl Rove says it isn't going to be her, but you know what? This administration practices something called identity politics. Now, I don't know if you know what that is, but identity politics is basically saying we identify with a certain group, a certain style, certain people. And if you take a look at the cabinet that Mr. Biden has assembled, Take a look at the identity on that. They are not concerned about the merit of the individual. They're concerned about if they fit into the right DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. The main D is diversity. Just take a look at that. It's all you need to know. And having Michelle in there, she's black, she's Democrat, and she's a woman. Now, you may disagree with any of that stuff, but who else do you recommend? Biden could say, no, I'm not getting out. But I tell you, the convention, which happens in August in Chicago, unless you've got all the delegates, you're on a shoe-in. And I don't believe Biden's going to have all the delegates he needs to be automatically put in. Now, he may want to put up a fight, say, I'm not going to step down. But if the superdelegates decide, call on Joe and say, hey, Joe, ain't going to happen. Going to have somebody else. He may have to step down, but he may not. Now, here's the problem. There's a guy named Bill Maher. Bill Maher's, he's pretty much progressive, left, what have you. He's on TV, right? HBO, I think it is. Friday night, he called President Biden Ruth Bader Biden. Now, that has to do with one's cognitive abilities, which is what was going on with Ruth Bader Ginsburg back when she was alive. So he's calling Biden Ruth Bader Biden. Even Bill Maher is saying, hey, he could be replaced. More and more people are talking about this, not just on the conservative side, but also on the left. They're getting all concerned. And after the special prosecutor said, hey, this guy's got cognitive, he's got a problem. We couldn't get a conviction in court, which is the reason we're not bringing charges against him. We couldn't get a conviction in court because of the way he is. And in D.C., there's no way you're going to get a conviction for what Biden did. And he said he did do what he was said. He was keeping the documents. But you can't get a conviction because he's old, elderly, and has no memory. I mean, he's just an old man you don't want to convict. That's what the prosecutor, the special counsel, hired by Merrick Garland, not hired by a Republican, hired by Merrick Garland to investigate Biden. That's where it stands. So that's kind of where we are right now, boys and girls. You got Karl Rove saying, no, it's not going to happen. People are nuts saying this, that it's going to be Michelle. Who else you got? You got one person. One person you could use, but I think they're saving that person for 2028. Gavin Newsom. He's politicking for the job. Boy, he wants that job in the worst way. But Michelle, right now, identity politics, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Who better that fits all of those boxes in the identity politics of the Democratic Party? I can't think of anybody else. Now you know what's going on. Coming up next. Hello, class, and welcome back into the Pat White Show. Today, we are going to be discussing the United States Supreme Court. And I don't know if you know this or not, but the Supreme Court has never allowed cameras and microphones into their midst. And at least they haven't until just recently. As a matter of fact, this past Friday, they allowed microphones in for a hearing for what I believe is the very first time. And this was a big one. This had to do with the state of Colorado saying that they can take President Trump, or Donald Trump, call him what you will, off of the ballot in Colorado because they believe, their Secretary of State says, her name is Jenna Griswold. Now, she's not elected Secretary of State. She's appointed. Now, that's a very important thing to keep in mind. But anyway, the hearing went in front of the Supreme Court on an emergency basis because Colorado was saying, hey, we're going to use the a little used, never used, frankly, section of the Constitution that deals with the removing someone from the ballot for things such as insurrection. Now, let me clear this up for you. That whole section in the Constitution was put in after the Civil War, and it was intended to take members of the Confederacy and tell them they could not be involved with the U.S. government because they were, quote, insurrectionist, Civil War. Now, that they were pardoned, many of them. Robert E. Lee was one, was pardoned by this because they said, he really wasn't all that bad. He was just a guy running, the war for the Confederacy. But that was all put in, the insurrectionists, to saying they can't be in government, can't be involved, and all related to the Civil War, and it's never been used ever since then. Well, Colorado's trying to use it. And then some other states, like Maine and some other ones, trying to use the same thing, saying, yeah, we can use that, even though Trump has never been accused, never been tried, never been convicted of any of this stuff. It's just on the hearsay of those individuals saying, well, we're going to take him off the ballot because a small section of the Constitution relating to the Civil War says they could. Supreme Court heard that. And I was listening to the audio as the judges were talking to the attorney representing Colorado. And in my listening, I could hear judges on both sides of the aisle, both Republican and Democrat, liberal and conservative, saying pretty much the same thing. Hey, they said, this ain't really a good plan. And one of the judges, and I believe it was a liberal, said, you do this, that means every other state could say, we don't like this Republican or we don't like this Democrat, and we're going to keep them off the ballot. And this is what everybody on the Supreme Court was pretty much saying. You start this thing, you got some consequences there that are going to be just drastic and could result in one or two states picking out who the president's going to be. That's how they're doing this. It's not going to work. So the justices pretty much shut this down. Now the Secretary of State of Colorado, she's very upset. Supreme Court, she said, is not following democracy. Well, democracy, if you want to understand the concept, democracy means, let's say you have two wolves and one sheep. And in democracy, since there's two wolves and only one sheep, the two wolves can decide they want to eat the sheep, but they get their way because they're in the majority. That's what democracy is. Majority rules. We are not a democracy in America, folks. We are a representative republic. Now, how is the Supreme Court going to decide this? I think it's going to be soon. I think it could be next week or two. Could be very soon. And my guess is it could be as much as 9-0 or possibly 8-1. But right now I'm looking at 9-0. All the justices, what I heard them say, this ain't a good plan. And Supreme Court doesn't want anything to do with this nonsense. Shut this thing down and say, let the American voters decide who they want to run their country and who they want to run them. You got it? That's the deal. That's what's going on. So now you know what happened to the Supreme Court. Now you know why. And now you know what the outcome could be. But it's a mess. Tribalism at its worst. We're seeing it in this particular situation. That's all I got for now. See ya. Coming up next. All right, everyone, let's discuss some legal issues right now. This one takes place in the state of Hawaii, the Aloha State. And in it, the Hawaiian Supreme Court decided that the United States Supreme Court does not rule the land. The Constitution does not apply to the people in Hawaii because in Hawaii, they have the spirit of aloha. Yeah. Let me explain this to you. The Supreme Court said that it's the right of Americans to have a constitutional right to carry based upon the Second Amendment. And that's been decided in a couple of cases. And a case like this went before the Hawaiian Supreme Court involving a person carrying a firearm and said he had the right to do it because he was protecting himself for safety. Well, the Hawaiian Supreme Court said, nah, hey, the Constitution is old. That's old school. That's way back hundreds of years ago. And the Hawaiian Constitution says, nah, we don't have to live by those rules. We live by the aloha spirit. And if we tell people they can't be running around carrying guns, well, that's because that's the way it is in Hawaii. And Hawaii runs its own rules and regulations. And frankly, the U.S. Constitution in Hawaii means nothing. Hawaii's Constitution and Hawaii's Supreme Court say, no, it's the spirit of aloha that makes us special. We make the rules. We don't follow the United States Constitution because it was done by old people many years ago and frankly doesn't mean anything. You know what it is? That concept is called the living Constitution. Some people espouse that thing, saying, yeah, we got to change that thing because, the way it was 250 years ago, it's not the way it is today. We've got to get into today's standards in our Constitution, which is a nice way of saying we got to get rid of that Second Amendment. That we just can't have that. So in Hawaii, they said, we don't have to do it. Hey, it's our Constitution. It's our way of running the rodeo. It's the aloha spirit. So, the heck with the rest of you. There you go. Now, I don't know what's going to happen involving this. I have no idea what the Supreme Court's going to say. I have no idea what the federal government's going to say. My guess is right now, since Hawaii is a very big D state, as in the Democrat tribe, not much is going to happen. They're going to say, well, that's Hawaii. They're thousands of miles away. It really doesn't affect anything, so let's just ignore what Hawaii's doing. But what happens if other states inside the 48 states decide to do the same thing? What if they say, Hawaii was right. That Constitution's old school. And we don't want to follow that stuff. We want something newer, better. We want our rules. Not those 250 years ago old guys. That creates a very interesting quandary that may in fact occur if this is taken and played out even farther than it already is. Just something to advise you about as life moves on. That's all I got for today. See ya. Coming up next. Hello, everyone. Welcome into another edition of the Pat White Show. And today we're going to be discussing the perils of the United States military. Well, namely the perils of the United States Air Force, to which the group I used to belong. Well, they have a program, folks, and wait till you hear this one. Their recruiting is down 11% from what it had previously been. And so now what they're doing is they are offering retired members of the Air Force. If you're, say, a captain on up or an E8 on up in the enlisted ranks, if you'll return to the Air Force for 48 months, you'll go in at the rank that you left when you retired. You will get paid, you will get incentive pay, and all the different people they're looking for in virtually every job category that you can think of. One of which is pilots. And I'm going, really? I could go back into the Air Force and start flying again, get flight pay and bonuses? Well, not exactly, because the age limit is, a lot younger than me. But the Air Force has raised the age level to accommodate even more people because they're saying, well, we tried with the younger folks, but now we've got to get into older folks because we're hurting. We can't fill the slots that we have. There aren't enough people willing to come into the military. And those who have experience, those who are high timers, call them what you will, those people are saying, hey, I'm getting out. And they can't find people to come in and take their place. And we're looking at all sorts of career fields like pilots and battle managers, air battle managers, this is the drone people, and psychologists and missile operations and nuclear operations and cyber operations and operations. So, you name it, the Air Force has virtually every career level is open for people who retire. They're saying, come on back in for a few years. Come on back in, do a 4-year stint, and we will pay you a buku amount of money. Because we can't get anybody in to stay in the military because they don't want to. Why are people leaving the military in the first place? Maybe because the military is becoming woked. Not that they want to be woked, but they're becoming woke because upper management, upper command levels are woking them. And the people in the military are saying, sorry, dudes, I ain't doing this. You know, if you're in the military, you are at the point of the spear when it comes to our nation. You're the people who stand in the front line and say, we're going to go fight the bad guys. And if you don't have the people to do that, or if they're namby-pamby and want to walk around wearing a dress saying, oh my goodness, sorry, you ain't going to win a battle against anybody. Because the job of military, and I hate to say this, the job of the military is to kill people and break stuff. That's what our job is. But now, apparently it isn't, so now they're asking retirees to come on back. And they've raised the age level to 42. They're hurting for certain, folks. And now you know what's going on, because the Air Force has missed their recruiting by 11%. That, folks, in the real world is a very big deal. Your military can no longer support your country. Live with that fact, folks, because it's happening in front of your eyes, whether you like it or not. Coming up next. All right, today we're going to have a little lesson in stupidity, and actually how to avoid stupidity. This has to do with you folks out there that love to fly your drones. I mean, people getting drones all over the place. They use them in all sorts of commercial ventures. The military uses them. Everybody uses drones in one way, shape, or form, but you want to be careful on using a drone, especially if you're into taking selfies of yourself, like some people like to do. Here's a perfect example. At the AFC football championships between the folks in the Ravens and the Chiefs, a gentleman decided he was going to take his drone to the game, and he was going to launch it and have it hanging high above the stadium and have it swoop around so that he could get the drone to come in and take a picture of him standing inside of the stadium so he could take a picture, send that to everybody, and show it the grandeur of him being at this AFC championship game with his fantastic drone. And there his picture is, and he is going to look so cool in front of his friends, family, wherever he decides to post this thing. That was his plan, and that's what he did. But one little error. You see, the FAA put a restricted fly zone on that stadium during that game, as they do at all kinds of games. Whether it's a football game, a baseball game, a big game of whatever sort, the FAA will put restrictive airspace on those areas and say nothing flies in or around that area. And that's because some people could probably do something stupid. Now, if someone wanted to do something really stupid, they couldn't care less what the FAA says, and I understand that. But in this case, flying a drone to take your selfie so you're going to look good to all your friends, family, and your internet buddies resulted in this gentleman being arrested and is now facing 4 years in federal prison. That's what I said. 4 years in federal prison for violating FAA restricted airspace. Now he said, well, I didn't know. I didn't know the FAA could do that. I'm just flying my drone because I'm stupid. Well, yes, he is. He is stupid. But his attorney is going to go to the prosecutor and say, hey, man, look, this guy's a dope. All right? Everybody's got these stupid drones. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't have a drone license. He hasn't studied. He's just some stupid yahoo out there with his little drone wanting to get a picture of himself at the game. Come on, putting the guy in jail for 4 years. That's going to cost you thousands of dollars a year. And frankly, it's too harsh of a sentence for this guy. So he's going to plead that case to the prosecutor. Prosecutor's going to sit there and go, yeah, I don't want to prosecute this because if I do, we're going to have an ugly battle, and it's going to get a lot of different things. It's going to be very expensive to prosecute this guy if he decides to take it to court. And yeah, it's going to cost $40,000 to $50,000 a year to house this guy. And besides that, the judge is probably going to say, look, first time offense, give the guy probation, community service, big fine, whatever. So the prosecutor says, okay, we'll stipulate a deal. Plea bargain. Plea bargain the guy down. He pleads guilty for doing something, trespassing, whatever, and pays a fine, community service, and that's it. But there's a lesson here. If you own a drone, I suggest you check out the rules and regulations of owning a drone. Don't be flying it at a big-time event so you can get a selfie of yourself, because I guarantee you the FAA will come down you and stomp you like a grape. Unless you don't mind being stomped like a grape and turn into wine. Who cares? But be advised, don't violate the rules. If you do, you'll pay the price. And now you know. Coming up next. Hello, everyone, and welcome back into this edition of the Pat White Show. Today, we're going to be talking about a member of Generation Z. Her name is Lohani Santos. Now, Lohani is from Brooklyn, New York. She's a college graduate with a double major in college. And she is on the street trying to get herself a job working in a coffee shop, handing out resumes and going on TikTok and pleading her case in front of how many people are on TikTok, I don't know. But she's saying, I can't get hired by anybody because, well, I don't know why. My plan was to go on to TikTok, and to become an influencer. Now, what is an influencer on TikTok? Well, apparently that's someone that tells you what to do, where to go, and what to buy or whatever. And that was her goal getting out of college, because in college she majored in communications and acting. And I'm going, okay, what kind of communications did you major in? And what kind of acting? Have you tried to get parts into plays? And you're from New York. I mean, don't you have Broadway there where people go to these things? And as far as communications go, was it in broadcasting? Was it in journalism? Was it in one of those fields of communications? But I do know this. She had hundreds of resumes and nobody wants to hire her. And the one coffee shop that she went to said, well, you're going to have to go through 18 hours of non-paid training before we'll even consider you for a job. She said, no, I'm not going to do that. She said previously she worked as a nanny until she lost her job doing that. Here's my opinion on that. If you're going to go to college, make sure you get yourself a degree in something that the industry, the people out in the outside world are hiring. And frankly, not everybody needs to go to college. There's other places you could go. There's other fields of work. There's other trades that you could learn, whether it's being an electrician, being a plumber, being a car mechanic. And trust me, them car mechanics are making some awfully, awfully good money. All sorts of things you can do, and even going to a college that specializes in teaching you a job. So like I said, you go to college, you say, well, Jesus, I got a double major, but I can't find a job, and the only thing I was doing was a nanny. You live in New York, you can't find a job, maybe consider going to someplace else. But what did you do during your college years to try to get yourself some internships, so jobs that you could work into when you got out of college? I don't know if she did or not. It doesn't say in what I've read. The point I'm trying to make here is not everybody needs to go to college. It's not necessary. A lot more money than this lady is making from college because she's looking for a minimum wage job with a college degree. Maybe, just maybe, that college degree isn't all what she thought it would be, and she got it in a particular field that nobody is hiring from. Now, when I went to college, I worked at a radio station, worked my way through college at a radio station. That was my broadcasting background, my journalism background, writing, photography. I used all of those things when I got out because that's what I trained in when I was in college getting jobs. If you're going to go to college, make sure you get a degree in something that people are actually hiring folks for. Lanny Santos of Brooklyn, New York is a Generation Zer, and she's upset because now she has to work at a minimum wage job because nobody will hire her with whatever degree she has, even though it's a double major. Should I feel sorry? To a degree, yes. But it's sad that she's not really utilizing the chances she had to get the degree in something that is absolutely a hireable field. Maybe that's the biggest problem going on right now. People get degrees in nothing that anybody wants to hire. Just a thought on my part. Just an opinion, but I'm going to go with it. See ya. Coming up next. Hey everyone, welcome back into the Pat White Show, and today we're going to be talking about PETA. I'm sure everyone has heard of the organization PETA, the people eating tasty animals. I think that's what it means. Some would say it means something else, but that being said, PETA has now sent a letter out to the companies that make carousels. The kind of carousels you used to go on as a kid when you went to the county fair or the state fair or some of those kind of events. Well, you got on the horse or you got on the whatever animal cutout it was. You rode in the little wagon or whatever it happened to be. That was the big thing. And trying to get on the horse and catching the brass ring as you went around. Man, that was growing up. We all did that. Well, PETA says, no, we can't do that. We must stop doing this because PETA says no more animals. If you're going to make carousels, make them in the shape of cars or airplanes or spaceships or bulldozers or other vehicles because it's not fair to animals that you're exploiting them, that they're nothing more than a conveyance, says PETA. A conveyance. Well, let's see. If I go on a range where horses are and cattle are, they call it a ranch, and I'm riding on a horse trying to herd the cattle, gee, is that something I shouldn't be doing? I should be riding in what? A gas-powered vehicle that's polluting the air? Really? And so PETA is saying, get rid of carousels with animals. I'm going, excuse me. I mean, are you really that dumb? You're thinking that this is going to tell kids that, oh, wooden horses are used for conveyance? Well, if they decide to ride a horse, they're going to figure out, yeah, that's what they do. You go to some other country and they use horses everywhere. Horses are, my goodness gracious, horses drag beer wagons for Budweiser, don't they? Last time I checked, they did. And those horses are pretty doggone cool. So you're telling Budweiser not to use Clydesdales to pull their beer wagons in the commercials they're running, right? I mean, let me see if I got that right. No horses, no Clydesdales. Boy, the commercials for Budweiser at the Super Bowl are going to be pretty doggone boring without the horses, don't you think? But yes, PETA said it contributes to the connotation that animals are used as conveyances and amusement. Really? You know, where I live, I got horses in my backyard. My grandchildren love horses. My kids love horses. But remove them from the carousels because it infringes on the rights of horses and animals? Really? Boy, I think PETA's got, I don't know what weed PETA is smoking, but whatever it is, I think it ought to be made illegal. Just my thought. That's all I got to say on that. See ya. Coming up next. Hello, everyone, and welcome back into today's edition of the Pat White Show. Today, we're going to be discussing losers. Well, according to the mayor of Minneapolis, seems the mayor of Indianapolis had a big meeting. His name is Joseph Frey, and he was speaking at the downtown Minneapolis Council's annual meeting. And he's walking around the room and he says, hey, he said, I don't know if you saw this study or not, but a study clearly shows that when you have the ability, when people here have the ability to come downtown, but they don't, well, he says, those are people who were working downtown who are now working remotely. He said, that's not good. He said, because when they're working at home, they're just sitting around in their cat blanket, diddling on their laptop, and they're turning into losers because they're not coming downtown. Now, why would he make that statement? Well, because downtown Minneapolis is starting to look like a ghost town. And it's that way for a lot of other companies in the United States. When they're during the COVID thing, they told people, well, we want you to work remotely, work at your home. Well, you know what? People did that. And now when the companies are back to full force, back to working, they're saying, hey, everybody back to the office. And you know what the workers are saying? No, I don't like doing that. I don't want to go back to the office. I like working in my house. I like wrapping myself up in my blanket, diddling around with my cat. And the mayor says, hey, you're turning into losers by doing that. But are they really turning into losers? Really? They're working at home. Hey, they take care of the kids if the kids are there. They can do everything they normally do, and they're still earning money, and because they don't have to go out and pay for gas to get to work, they have to go out to buy lunch. Heck, they don't even have to integrate themselves with the people in their office, because many of them don't want to do that in the first place. So now the mayor says, you people who stay at home, you're losers, because downtowns are dying in places like Minneapolis and many, many other locations, because those who are on remote duty, working at home, like it, and they don't want to come back. Well, guess what? Many companies are saying, those are the easiest people to fire. We could just send them a nice little email saying, your services are no longer required at our company. Thank you very much. Don't think that's not happening? You're wrong, because it is happening. Losers working downtown because they want to work at home and don't want to go into the office. Who'd have thunk we'd be seeing that in today's society? But yes, we are. Now you know some of what's going on with America, and the mayor of Minneapolis is pointing that out, that people who work from home have become losers. Now you know. More of the Pat White Show coming up. Coming up next. Hello, everyone. And unless you've been living under a rock, you know that last year the marketing director of the Anheuser-Busch Corporation, a female, decided to create a new marketing campaign for their Bud Light beer. Now, Bud Light at that time was a very popular beer. It was probably one of the most popular beers in America. And this marketing director said, yeah, let's bring in a transgender individual, an influencer. Dylan McVaney, I believe, was her, whatever his name. And let's have that individual market Budweiser. Okay, that's the story. Now you know exactly what happened. Well, they did, she did, and America said, that's it. Not drinking Bud Light, not drinking Budweiser. The sales of Budweiser Light collapsed about 30%. And they were in terrible. I mean, that's the big beer for Budweiser. People weren't drinking Bud, saying, nope, you push that kind of stuff on us in America, we're not going for it. And so they boycotted. That's what they did. Well, recently, Donald Trump said, hey, America, it's time to give Bud Light a second chance. Everybody deserves a second chance. And he said, hey, we need to, let's give them a shot. Let them back into the fold. Let's see if they've improved their ways, done better. And I will tell you, in the Super Bowl, they're going to have a Budweiser commercial with the Clydesdale, something they haven't had in a long time. And it's got a dog, so it's got the dogs, got the horses, got beer, got a truck, got Christmas. It's got everything you want. So the president says, "Hey, let's give them a break. It's been 10 months. You guys been putting them down, not buying their beer." Now the critics, and trust me, there are critics, are saying, well, the only reason Trump is doing this because the CEO of Anheuser is throwing him a fundraiser where the tickets are going to be $10,000 a pop. Can I say $10,000 a bud? I don't know. Anyway, that's the deal. So here's the question, America. Do we, as a collective society, forgive the Budweiser Corporation for the actions of their idiot marketing director, who is no longer their marketing director and has been fired for proposing this ad campaign? Now, keep something in mind. She presented the ad campaign to the executives of Budweiser. That's how it works. Marketing people, they come up with a plan, they present it to management. If management buys it, they go ahead and go with the program, say, okay, we're going to go with this. Because she sold it to them saying, hey, you got to reach another group of people. You're not reaching the youngsters, the Generation Zers. They're transgender, they're LBGQ, XYZ, whatever they are. You got to reach out to them. And they bought it. So now, do we give Budweiser a chance? I say, quoting a Beatles song, let's give beer a chance. That's just a thought. Just pulling Budweiser up and saying, you do that again, and it's your last time. We'll let you do it once. First time, shame on you. You do it again, shame on me. So much for Budweiser. My thoughts. What do you think? See ya. Coming up next. Hello, and let me say greetings to my fellow podcasting friends. Well, we're going to talk about something today that happens to be near and dear to me. I don't know about you, but this is a big thing to me. Back in 1986, I was one of many who watched the Chicago Bears win the Super Bowl. That's a game that I taped on my VCR back in those days. And I still have that VCR today. Even though I don't have a VCR machine, still got the tape. Why? Because it was big. It was really big. The Bears back then were like no other team that I could possibly even imagine. Their defense, their offense. I mean, you talk like that. The Bears did a video, for crying out loud, of them singing and dancing. The 86 Chicago Bears, like no other team I think Chicago's ever seen, and I've been a fan of the Bears. Well, here's the deal. Over the years, a lot of those Bears have become coaches, big-time players. I mean, you see, I see some of these coaches, and I say, hell, well, he played for the Bears back in the 80s. He played for the Bears. A lot of them did. Some of them, unfortunately, didn't. And I'm going to tell you about one of them. His name is Steve McMichael. Everybody knew him as Mongo. Mongo McMichaels. Incredible defensive backfield. Mongo was Mongo. It was all part of the Bears. Well, Steve Mongo, unfortunately, was diagnosed with ALS. Arthromatic lateral sclerosis. And I probably mispronounced that, and I apologize for that. ALS, that's what you know it as. And when he was diagnosed, his doctor said he'd have 6 months to live at best. That was a while back. He's still living. He is recently, a number of players were announced into the Hall of Fame, and that getting into Hall of Fame is a big deal, okay? 3 Chicago Bears, the same class, nominated. Dev Esther, tremendous return guy, one of the best I've ever seen. Julius Peppers, and obviously Mongo McMichael. When the announcement came down as to who was going to be going into the Hall of Fame, there's always somebody big who shows up at that person's door and says, hey, you have been nominated. You're going into the Hall of Fame. Always somebody big. Always somebody big. Now, obviously, Mongo is laid up in a hospital bed. They have to do the best they can with him with the time he has left. But you know who knocked on his door and went to see Mongo to tell him one of the great football players of all time? Richard Dent. Now, I say all of this because I'm a fan of football like many of you are. And but I definitely remember the team of 1986, the Chicago Bears, like no other team I've ever watched. Something to behold. And one of those, well, actually three Chicago Bears going into the same Hall of Fame class. Pretty unusual, but well-deserved. So that's my point. That's what I'm talking about. Mongo McMichael, Hall of Fame. Will he make it to the Hall of Fame induction? Nobody knows. He will probably try, and they'll probably try to get him there. We can only wish him well that he can do it. Because if he does, that would be something to see. That's my take on the NFL. See ya. Coming up next. Hello, everyone, and welcome into another episode of the Pat White Show. Well, today we're going to be discussing what it amounts to as an Indiana tradition. That tradition being the Indianapolis 500, run every spring down in Indianapolis at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Now, I presume most everybody in Indiana has probably been to an Indy race at one time or another. Whether it's the 500 or whether it was the Brickyard Racing or the Formula One, whatever it was, chances are pretty good you've been there. Now, most people sit in the stands. However, some people, back in the day, used to love going to a place called the SnakePit. And I attended my first Indianapolis race, I believe it was 1970, I'm going to give you maybe 71, 72. It's one of those years. And it was the year that they had the big crash at the start. I mean, it was a massive crash. I was standing down pit one because I was in the snake pit. I wanted to get pictures because that's what I did. I'm a photographer. I shoot photos. And I thought, oh, a great place to be would be turn one where they start the race. You see all the stuff going on, the cars coming around. Snake pit back then was a snake pit. It was like nothing I had ever seen in my entire life. I thought I saw a lot of stuff when I lived in California, but believe me, what was going on with the snake pit was the snake pit. Well, and that was the first year I saw Indy, and they had to stop the race. They stopped the race because of the crash, and they delayed it for a couple of days because there was rain going on. And I think they brought the race back, I believe it was on Wednesday, because the days were different back in those days. And so I moved down to turn number 4, and I was shooting pictures there. Ended up seeing a crash that took the life of one of the Indianapolis 500 drivers. And I'm going to say his name was Swede Savage. I could be wrong, but I think that's what his name was. That was back in the 70s when the snake pit was the snake pit. Well, for a while there it went away apparently, but as now I understand it has regained its life. And the latest press release came out that says the lineup is ready for the 2024 Snake Pit at the Indy 500. It's called the 2024 Indy 500 Coors Light Snake Pit. Okay, they got a sponsor, Coors Light. And it is going to be headed by all-star lineup. The lineup includes people like Dom Dalla, Griffin, Sylvan King, and Timmy Trumpet. Boy, those are big acts. Not that I've ever heard of them, but big acts. But the snake pit is not going to be in turn 1 like I remember it. It's going to be in turn 3. And I'm thinking, why turn 3? Well, it's pretty much out of the way for the average customer and the media folks, although media is everywhere around the track. But most people won't be seeing what's going on, so they put it out the way where nobody can see what's happening in turn 3. Well, the price of this little escapade, if you want to go to this, package price, okay, that's what I'm going to quote, package price. Package price includes the general admission to the 500 and the Snake Pit. Okay? Sounds like pretty cool, but here's the deal. It's going to cost you to go to the Snake Pit and get you into the 500, $100, $100. And, but if you want to be in the VIP section of the Snake Pit, it's going to cost you $205. You got to be 18 years of age or older and buy your tickets online. And they say that they're encouraged to buy your tickets online because do it right now. Because if it becomes very popular, they're going to raise the price, make it even more expensive. And there's going to be limited quantities of wristbands available to the people who want to attend the Snake Pit. Now, I don't know about you, but me? Nah, I think I'm going to be sitting in the stands, maybe. But more often than not, I'm probably going to be sitting in my lazy boy, drinking an ice-cold diet water. Yeah, it's what I drink nowadays. Anyway, that's pretty much what's going on. So plan your trip down to the Snake Pit. It's only going to cost you a few $100, and you should have a good time. That's all for today. See ya. Bye now. Well, that does it for today's edition of the Pat White Show. Thanks for tuning in, and make sure to follow us on social media for the latest Pat White Show, for all the news and updates. And stay tuned for brand new episodes of the Pat White Show coming real soon. Like what you're hearing? Make sure you don't miss an episode by following the Pat White Show on Spotify. Just search for the Pat White Show, hit follow, and get ready for insightful conversations delivered straight to your Spotify feed. If you enjoy watching podcasts as much as listening to them, good news! The Pat White Show is also on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel now for visual content, behind-the-scenes footage, and full podcast experience. Find us on YouTube at the Pat White Show channel.